In parts of Central America and southern Mexico, a tiny fly is causing massive destruction to livestock, and it could be heading north. These are not ordinary flies. The threat is real, urgent, and costly, but scientists have a unique weapon. Today, we dive into how nuclear flies are saving the livestock industry and potentially protecting humans from a devastating parasite, the flesh-eating parasite threat. The New World screwworm, Cochleomia hominivirax, is a particularly destructive parasite. Unlike most fly larvae, which feast on decaying organic matter, these larvae target living, warm-blooded animals. Once the female fly locates an open wound, she lays between 200 and 300 eggs. Within a day, the larvae hatch and begin burrowing into the flesh of the host animal. The result is a festering wound filled with sharp-mouthed maggots feeding on live tissue. If untreated, the infestation can kill livestock, pets, or wildlife in as little as 1 to 2 weeks. Cattle, horses, deer, and even humans are vulnerable. The parasite is more than a biological horror, it's also an economic disaster. Ranchers must constantly monitor herds for wounds, avoid procedures like branding during warmer months, and spend money on antiseptic treatments. In regions where outbreaks occur, screwworm infestations can cause losses in the billions. A long battle against screwworms. The United States has faced this enemy before. Screwworms were widespread across the southern US until the mid-20th century. Livestock industries suffered enormous losses, and rural communities endured the exhausting task of managing infestations. The turning point came in the 1960s and 1970s, when a radical idea, fighting flies with flies, changed everything. By releasing sterile males into the wild, scientists disrupted the reproductive cycle. Because female screwworm flies only mate once in their lifetime, mating with sterile males prevented them from producing viable offspring. Slowly, generation by generation, populations collapsed. By 1966, screwworms were eradicated from US soil. Over the following decades, this success extended through Mexico, Central America, and down to Panama, where a containment zone was established to keep the parasite from spreading northward again. Why the flies are back. After nearly 2 decades of relative peace, screwworms began resurfacing in Central America in early 2023. Countries including Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, and El Salvador reported thousands of infestations. By November, the pest had reached southern Mexico, putting US livestock at risk again. The resurgence has been linked to the movement of livestock across borders, combined with difficulties in maintaining constant aerial releases of sterile flies. Wildlife hosts such as deer and rodents further complicate control efforts since they can carry infestations across remote areas. With more than 35,000 infestations reported since 2023, 83% in cattle, the threat of a northern spread into Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona has forced US officials to restart aggressive containment programs. Fighting parasites with nuclear science. The weapon at the heart of the eradication strategy is the sterile insect technique. This process relies on nuclear technology, but not in the way most people imagine. Instead of bombs or reactors, it uses targeted doses of radiation. In production facilities, screwworm pupae, pill-sized capsules that soon develop into adult flies, are exposed to gamma radiation. The radiation damages the chromosomes of male pupae, rendering them sterile while keeping them otherwise healthy. When these sterile males mature, they compete with wild males for mates. Since female screwworm flies mate only once, any that choose a sterile male produce no offspring. Over time, the population dwindles. The amount of radiation used is carefully calibrated to sterilize without harming the insect's ability to survive, fly, and reproduce behaviorally. Importantly, the radiation leaves no lingering risk to animals, humans, or the environment. The logistics of a fly factory, producing billions of sterile flies, is no simple task. The process begins with breeding fertile populations in laboratory settings. Female flies must be coaxed to lay eggs in controlled environments. In the past, breeders used horse meat and honey as attractants, but modern facilities rely on blends of egg powder and cattle blood to mimic the nutrient-rich substrates required for larval growth. Once larvae hatch, they are reared in sawdust trays, which replicate the soil environment they would naturally fall into after leaving an animal host. These larvae pupate into black, capsule-like forms. At this stage, technicians expose the pupae to gamma radiation. The males are sterilized, while females are often culled or separated. After emerging as adults, the sterile flies are kept in temperature-controlled environments until release. The The final step involves loading the insects into specially designed containers aboard aircraft. Flying over rural zones at specific altitudes, planes disperse hundreds of millions of sterile males across wide areas. The releases are timed and repeated weekly, ensuring that wild females consistently encounter sterile mates. Scale of the operation. The Panama-US Commission for the Eradication and Prevention of Screwworm Infestation in Livestock (COPEG) has been producing and releasing sterile flies for decades, averaging around 100 million flies per week. This massive effort creates a protective barrier across Central America. But with the outbreak spreading north into Mexico, the need for sterile flies has outpaced production. US lawmakers estimate that hundreds of millions more sterile flies are required weekly to keep populations under control. In response, the US Department of Agriculture, USDA, has committed to major investments. A new sterile fly facility is being established near the Texas-Mexico border at Moore Air Base in Hidalgo County. The project is expected to cost around $300 million. Additionally, an older fly factory in Mexico is undergoing $21 million in renovations, with full operations planned by late 2025. Economic stakes of the fight. The livestock industry is a multi-billion-dollar cornerstone of the US economy. Cattle ranchers, in particular, stand to lose the most if screwworms establish themselves. Industry officials estimate that an uncontrolled outbreak could cause economic damage exceeding $10 billion. Compared to that number, the $300 million cost of building a fly factory seems like a worthwhile investment. As Texas rancher Stephen Diebel put it, preventing screwworm infestations isn't optional, it's about protecting livelihoods. Daily inspections, wound care, and treatment already add significant burdens to ranchers in affected regions. If the parasite were to spread further north, it could cripple trade in cattle, horses, bison, and other livestock. A threat beyond livestock. While cattle and horses make up most cases, screwworms are not picky about hosts. Wildlife such as deer, birds, and rodents can become infested, spreading the parasite beyond farms and ranches. Domestic pets like dogs and cats are also at risk. Humans, though less frequently affected, are not immune. In August 2025, the US recorded its first confirmed human screwworm case in decades, involving a Maryland resident who returned from El Salvador. The patient had maggot-infested wounds requiring surgical removal of the larvae. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) warns that symptoms in humans include non-healing wounds, foul odors, bleeding sores, or visible larvae. Treatment requires immediate medical intervention as the infestation does not resolve on its own. Safety and risks of sterile fly programs. Though highly effective, releasing billions of sterile flies is not without challenges. Breeding facilities must maintain strict biosecurity to prevent fertile flies from escaping. Workers handle potentially infectious materials during the rearing stages, requiring careful safety measures. The aerial release process also involves risks. In June 2025, a plane carrying sterile flies crashed near the Guatemala border, tragically killing people. Such accidents highlight the logistical difficulties of managing large-scale dispersal operations. Nevertheless, experts emphasize that the benefits far outweigh the risks. Sterile insect technology is environmentally friendly, avoids the use of pesticides, and targets only the screwworm population without affecting other species. Global implications. The resurgence of screwworms in Central America serves as a warning for other regions. Countries in South America, the Caribbean, and even parts of Africa face similar risks. Maintaining sterile fly production facilities worldwide could serve as a long-term safeguard for global food security. The battle against screwworms is far from over. With outbreaks spreading north and isolated human cases emerging, vigilance is crucial. The expansion of sterile fly production in Texas and Mexico marks a renewed commitment to containment. Experts stress that the fight will take years and require consistent funding, monitoring, and international cooperation, but the alternative, allowing flesh-eating parasites to spread unchecked, is unthinkable. As one Texas rancher put it, sterile flies may be the only thing standing between a thriving livestock industry and a devastating parasite invasion. If you found this insight fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories on incredible scientific breakthroughs shaping our world.